So after the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 1 preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks, who currently is quarterback one? Who is in the lead at the moment to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers? Because all three of these quarterbacks performed really well. And Mitchell Trubisky exceeded my expectations. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. For all of you guys who have been listening to the podcast for over the last couple of months, you guys would know that when the news first broke that the Steelers were signing Mitchell Trubisky, I was not happy. I said, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Are we really going to let Big Ben, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, retire and then have his replacement be Mitchell Trubisky? But then, I was reading reports about how he performed in OTAs and minicamp. He was pretty good. And then so far throughout training camp up to this point, he's also been pretty good. But, I had to see it to believe it. I needed to see it in a live game. And Mitchell Trubisky was looking like Money Mitch out there. He went 4-7, 63 passing yards, had a nice touchdown to Gunnar Olszewski. And what impressed me the most was his athleticism. Mitchell Trubisky, believe it or not, is one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL. Something that he's really good at is breaking out of sacks, rolling outside the pocket, and throwing on the run. And we saw that on full display and the few amount of snaps that he received. And I think it is fair to say that Mitchell Trubisky probably is quarterback one at the moment. I was really surprised with how well Mitchell Trubisky played. And for a lot of you guys out there, you're probably not surprised because you're probably going to say, well, JT, what do you expect? He was held back by the Chicago Bears with poor coaching. He went to Buffalo, was able to sit behind Josh Allen, somewhat get developed by Brian Daboll, and now he's going to a winning organization in Pittsburgh. So, of course, he's going to improve. On top of that, we have more weapons to work with, which I do understand. But at the same time, I didn't really give Mitchell Trubisky the fair benefit of a doubt. I didn't really give Mitchell Trubisky a chance. So, Mitchell Trubisky, if you're watching this, I apologize. You get what I'm saying? Like, you have my respect. The Baltimore Ravens may have Lamar Jackson, but we got Money Mitch. And Mitchell Trubisky can really move. And on top of that, I was really impressed with how calm he was inside of the pocket, even though, the play calling was vanilla because nobody is really running anything super complex in the preseason. So everything was pretty simplistic. You pretty much just want to see your quarterback go through his reads and his progressions. And that's something that Mitchell Trubisky did a very good job at least so far. So I was really impressed with how Mitchell Trubisky looked in this preseason win against the Seattle Seahawks. Now you have Mason Rudolph. 9 of 15, 93 passing yards and a touchdown. Believe it or not, Mason Rudolph also has had a pretty good camp. And it was kind of surprising to me because I was like, man, are you really telling me that Mason Rudolph has an opportunity to become quarterback one? Well, I now kind of understand why. He had a really nice throw to George Pickens on 3rd and 13, which ended up resulting in a touchdown. And a lot of people were going back and forth on which one was better, the throw or the catch. I mean, George Pickens has been going insane. He's been the talk of training camp, or pretty much the talk of the offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base. And when he made that grab, I said, oh my God. I got to draft you on all of my fantasy football teams. I promise to God, I have George Pickens on every single one of my fantasy football teams. This dude is on demon time. And the catch was absolutely phenomenal. I didn't even think he was going to be able to drive both feet in. And when they went to review it, I thought it was going to end up getting overturned. But I mean, this dude, George Pickens, is a monster. But at the same time, we got to give credit to Mason Rudolph on the throw. He put that throw right on the money. That probably is the most accurate pass that I have ever seen Mason Rudolph throw during his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, of course, we got the Mason Rudolph experience. He's still struggling with pocket awareness, and he still had some inaccurate passes. But for the most part, overall, he had a really good performance. I was really impressed with what I saw out of Mason Rudolph. But the man of the hour, Kenny Pickett. Because that's what he was doing against the Seattle Seahawks defense. He came in and the dude just looked surgical. He went 13 of 15. 2 touchdowns for 95 passing yards. And listen, believe it or not, you can believe this if you want to, but the night before the game, I called up Kenny Pickett. I was on the phone with Kenny, and I was like, listen, man, they currently got you listed as the 3rd string quarterback, but don't let that get you down, man, because at the end of the day, Big Ben was the 4th or 5th string quarterback going into the season when he was first drafted. Listen, you're going to go out there and you're going to ball. And when you ball, they're going to have no choice but to give you reps with the 2nd and 1st team. And when you look at Kenny Pickett, outside of Mitchell Trubisky, he was the 2nd most impressive quarterback. And I actually think that you can make a fair argument and say that Kenny Pickett deserves opportunity to get reps in the next preseason game with the starters or with the first team. Because if you can dominate the way Kenny Pickett did with the 3rd and 4th stringers, that's something that is really hard to do. I don't think a lot of people understand that when you're playing in a preseason, you're playing with a bunch of guys who most likely won't make it on the roster if you're running with the 3s. And then at the same time, you don't have the best offensive line. You're not going to have the greatest communication. But I think the fact that Kenny Pickett has been practicing with the 3rd team for the majority of this offseason has benefited him in a really good way, because he had good chemistry with the majority of guys that he is throwing the football to. He looked calm, poised, and in control. And he was really phenomenal outside of the pocket and throwing on the move, which was a big strength of his when he was coming out of Pittsburgh. Another thing that was really noticeable right off the bat was the fact that he goes through his reads super quick. The dude is like a processor. He sees it and the ball's out. Literally, there wasn't too many instances when Kenny Pickett was holding on to the ball longer than what he had to. And also, a big knock that many people had about Kenny Pickett coming out of the pit was the fact that many people questioned his pocket awareness, or how comfortable was he inside the pocket. Oftentimes when he was playing for Pitt, he would bail out of the pocket and throw from outside, but he was really calm inside of the pocket. There wasn't really too many occasions where he bailed for no reason. And on top of that, he is way, way more athletic than what we have given him credit for. We knew he could move, but I didn't think he could move like this. And of course, he had the fake slide, which went viral and stuff like that. But it's a difference between being able to move on the college level and being able to move at the NFL level, because the game is going times 100% faster than what it was in college for Kenny Pickett. And it's not really that he's faster than what I kind of expected him to be, but he's more agile than what I expected. You see, he's not a burner, but he is really shifty. He doesn't have Lamar or Kyler Murray kind of speed, but I do think that he has good enough speed to pick up some yards when you need him to on the ground. And he also has enough speed that he can extend plays and keep drives alive with his legs. However, he is really nimble. This dude is really, really shifty. And that's really what caught me off guard, because, he broke out of a sack. There was around 30 seconds left. This is when he had his game-winning drive. 30 seconds left. He broke out of a sack on 1st and 10. He stepped up, used his legs, and he ended up diving for more yards. And I was like, bro, this dude is really shifty. He also had another play before that one when he ended up breaking out of the pocket. And then the dude ended up getting a little bit shifty. The dude ended up, kind of getting out the little joystick. And I was just really impressed with how Kenny Pickett was moving. He looks way more faster and way more agile now than when he was playing for Pitt. So I'm really impressed with how Kenny Pickett performed in this preseason matchup against Seattle. And I'm still going to say that Mitchell Trubisky is the quarterback one, simply for the fact that out of all three quarterbacks, Mitchell Trubisky surprised me the most. I honestly thought that Trubisky was going to come out and he was going to struggle because, the offensive line wasn't all that great. But at the same time, despite the fact that the offensive line wasn't the best, Mitchell Trubisky was still making the most out of the opportunity. And that really is what impressed me the most. But I kind of think that it's 1A and 1B in a sense. Because Trubisky caught me off guard with how well he played. But at the same time, you also have to give a lot of credit to Kenny Pickett because the dude was balling out with third and fourth stringers. As a matter of fact, if the NFL was giving out, or if they do give out Player of the Week awards, you got to give one out to Kenny Pickett. Because there aren't too many quarterbacks that are good playing with third and fourth stringers. These are guys that you don't really know all that well. You don't really have a lot of great chemistry and timing with. And despite that, Kenny Pickett was putting on an absolute show. This dude was picking apart that Seattle Seahawks defense one by one. He was surgical. He was insanely accurate. I'm really hoping that Pittsburgh gives Kenny Pickett some legitimate reps with the first team. Let's see what Kenny Pickett can do. Stop saying that Kenny Pickett needs to sit a year. How do you know if he needs to sit a year if he doesn't get the opportunity to show what he can do with the ones? If Kenny Pickett can come out and dominate against first stringers, then I think that more than shows that he's more than ready of being able to start week 1. Now, if the Steelers want to play it safe and they don't want to rush him, that's a different argument. But if Kenny Pickett is able to go week 1, I don't see why you don't start Kenny Pickett. Now, at the same time, him not starting does somewhat benefit him in a sense because he can learn more of the playbook, get a little bit more of a feel for the game. But at the same time, there's only so much you can learn from watching the game from the sidelines. Really, the best way to learn is by being in game. And I honestly feel like if you put Kenny Pickett out there, you're not setting him up to fail. I think that Kenny Pickett is going to progress throughout this preseason and continue to show us that he's good enough to start week 1 against Cincinnati if we want him to. But right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a very good spot when it comes to the quarterback competition because pretty much you can make the argument and say that all three quarterbacks have a good amount of confidence and from the fan base that if you were to put any of them out there, you would still be really confident in how the offense is going to perform. Now, a lot of you guys probably don't want to see Mason Rudolph out there and trust me. I'm with you on that. I don't want to see no Mason Rudolph. He's a good backup. You get what I'm saying? But I've seen enough of Mason Rudolph. You feel me? But if he did end up having to start week 1 against Cincinnati, I would say, oh, God. But I would be, okay, he looked pretty good in the preseason. But I think that I'm going with Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and then Mason Rudolph as the order for who I think right now is in the lead for the quarterback 1 conversation. I definitely feel like Trubisky still is the starter at this point. I think that pretty much is his job to lose. But I definitely feel like Kenny Pickett is definitely giving Money Mitch a run for his money.